They, yeah, what courage, anyway. Anyway, I just want to say, first of all, thanks very much to the ABC Foundation for inviting me along today to talk to you all about how important courage, and there must be another phrase for thinking outside the box, but anyway, I'll keep using it until somebody comes up with it, but courage and thinking outside the box is when running a business in today's uncertain times. Although I know it takes many people to put on a great forum like this, I'd just like to thank a few individuals. Obviously Angelica, who leads this amazing initiative and has invited all of us here today to enjoy each other's company. There's Emilio, the founder and driving force of the ABC Foundation. And I believe I'm right in using the term in driving force, as Emilio is a bit of an adrenaline junkie with all his racing, his heli skiing, his diving, and his passion for football. Anyway, we should swap notes later. And finally, thank you to Guillermo and George. No, it's is it George? George, I never can pronounce it. Anyway, for helping to make today possible. Anyway, I can't resist starting off with a little boast. Last week, I ran my first ever marathon. And when I first announced it, thank you. When I first announced I was going to attempt it due to an old knee injury, I truly believed that I'd not complete the 26.2 miles. But when you run alongside 36,000 people of all ages, sizes, and fitness levels, you find their personal courage so inspiring, you just can't give up. We also had something like 2 million people in London. It was a fantastic atmosphere. And if you haven't run a marathon, I'd recommend you try. I was also very lucky to have my kids. I mean, I think all parents call them kids, even when they've grown up, but kids alongside me to make the pain a lot of fun. And just to prove it, I think here's a picture of the caterpillar and butterfly in all their glory. Anyway, I'll now take the opportunity to share, to share a few thoughts with you about our experience of building the Virgin brand over the last 40 years and how being courageous and taking risks and rewriting the accepted norms of business helped us a great deal along the way. Well, we'll get the tricky stuff out of the way first. The last couple of years have been some of the most turbulent and surprising I've encountered in my 40 years in business. Just wish I lived in South America, which seems to have done incredibly well. But I'm sure all of you know that this only too well who are living up in New York or in Europe. And I suspect quite a lot of you are experiencing the daily challenges that you've very rarely experienced before. But out of every crisis comes opportunity. And it is now, I believe, that entrepreneurs and dynamic companies can make a real impression. In fact, I think the need for an entrepreneurial spirit has literally never been greater. At times like these, being courageous is crucial. The first course of action for many business people is to take a big red marker and start cutting jobs, budgets, to start and stop looking for investment opportunities. And I've never been convinced that this is the right approach. In fact, I think in times of recession, you need to work every pound, you need to work every dollar, you need to be more courageous, you need to look for clever investments and don't be frightened to invest. We founded and grew Virgin Records, for instance, in the teeth of the recession of the early 1970s. We expanded Virgin Atlantic through the storms of the late 1980s and the early 1990s. We built Virgin Mobile after the dot-com crash of the late 1990s. There's no doubt that we have always done things a little differently at Virgin. We've never followed the business models of the marketing and the financial gurus. Rather, we've developed our own way of doing business over the years, regardless of the criticism thrown at us by the so-called business experts. And we've had to develop thick skin quite quickly. An attitude I like to call, just screw it, let's do it. As the amount of criticism has come thick and fast over the last 40 years. It's funny in life how some of the best ideas and best ways of doing things are often rejected by one generation, only for the next generation to find it impossible to understand the attitudes of the previous one. Again, all it takes is a little courage and a little self-belief. Well, when one night, over a drink, sitting around on cushions in a basement, actually I suspect it was a six-pack, we came up with the name Virgin instead of Slip Disc Records for our record company in the winter of 1969. I had some vague idea of the name being catchy and suitable to lots of other products for young people. Unfortunately, it was only I and a few of my friends who thought the name Virgin was really cool and far out. Man. Well, the majority of those in authority in Britain basically thought, with a name like that, we must be perverts. But a little-known fact is that we weren't even allowed to register the brand name with the patent office for 3 years, as they insisted that it was rude. So I had to write long letters explaining that actually Virgin was the complete opposite of rude before I finally got it accepted. Not the most auspicious start for a brand, but a start that I am bizarrely, some might say, proud of. Luckily, artists were very attracted to the name, which seemed sexy and off the wall to them, and Virgin Records really took off. And we began to develop the idea that we could take this name and we could apply it to lots of different businesses with different partners. The only linkage between the companies being the name itself, the philosophy of how we do business, the culture, and the famous Virgin brand values of quality, value for money, innovation, competitive challenge, and above all, fun. A business philosophy that we've now called branded venture capitalism. Well, with this vision in mind, I thought it was perfectly logical in 1984 for a record company to go and start an airline. Well, for a start, record company executives like me traveled on airlines all the time, and the experience was horrible. There was no entertainment. The food wasn't edible, and often the people were pretty unfriendly, added to which the prices were astronomical. And in some countries, things haven't changed very much. My life sometimes feels like the phrase, truth is stranger than fiction, was written based on some of my experiences. As was the case when I found myself organizing and selling the tickets for Virgin Airways' first ever flight. Well, in 1976, when Joan, my fiancée, and I were on holidays in the British Virgin Islands, we were trying to catch a flight to Puerto Rico. But the local American Airlines scheduled flight was cancelled. The airport terminal was full of stranded passengers. So I made a few calls to charter companies, and I agreed to charter a plane for $2,000 to Puerto Rico. Well, cheekily leaving out Joan and my name, I divided the price by the number of remaining passengers. I borrowed a blackboard, and I wrote Virgin Airways, $39, single flight to Puerto Rico. And I walked around the airport terminal, and I soon filled every seat on my charter plane. And as we landed at Puerto Rico, a passenger turned to me and said, Virgin Airways, not too bad, just smarten up the service a little, and you could be in business. And I said, I might just do that. And having just made my first profit on my first flight. So it got me thinking. Airlines don't think twice about bumping people. They don't think twice about quality. They didn't care about their staff. The staff therefore didn't smile. The food was dreadful. The entertainment was non-existent. And I told myself, don't be tempted. Don't even think about it. But of course, I was tempted. The idea grabbed me, it was exciting, and it certainly would be fun. So I called Boeing on my return, and I asked how much it would cost to rent a second-hand jumbo jet for a year. What did you say your business was again? Well, it's called Virgin. We signed great artists like the Sex Pistols, the Rolling Stones, and Phil Collins. Well, believe it or not, they didn't put the phone down on me. They listened to my enthusiasm, and they decided to take a risk on me. Now that took courage. The only hope was that with a brand name like that we would go the whole way.